ramping up pressure on Russia because strength is the only language that Russia will understand. The Russian economy is deeply affected by the sanctions. 210 billion euros of reserves of the Central Bank of Russia are immobilized. Russia's oil and gas revenues have fallen by almost 80% compared to before the war. Its deficit is skyrocketing. Interest rates are prohibitively high. Inflation is on the rise well above 10%. The price of importing technologies and critical goods is six times higher than before the war and compared to global average prices. In short, Russia's economy is limited to a war economy and sacrificing future prospects. Our message is very clear. This war must end. We need a real ceasefire, and Russia has to come to the negotiating table with a serious proposal. As it is up to today not showing willingness to achieve peace, we will step up pressure on Russia, including through further robust sanctions. Therefore, we are now proposing an 18th package of hard-biting sanctions. We're targeting basically two sectors, the Russian energy sector and the Russian banking sector. We're widening export bans and controls, and we strengthen the anti-circumvention measures. Let me first go on the topic of energy. For the first time, we propose a transaction ban for Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. This means that no EU operator will be able to engage directly or indirectly in any transaction regarding the Nord Stream pipelines. There is no return to the past. We also propose to lower the oil price cap from $60 to $45 per barrel. Since the oil cap was introduced in 2023, oil prices have gone down. They now trade very close to the cap level. By lowering the cap, we adapt it to changed market conditions and restore its effectiveness. Oil exports still represent 1/3 of Russia's government revenues. We need to cut this source of revenues. The oil price cap is a G7 coalition measure, so we will discuss at G7 in Canada at the end of this week or beginning of next week how to act together. In addition, to better enforce the cap, on top of the 342 vessels already listed, we list today additional 77 vessels that are part of the Russian shadow fleet. These vessels are a means to evade sanctions. With our listings, we severely constrain Russia's options to export its oil through a shadow fleet. Finally, we introduce a ban on the import of refined products based on Russian crude oil. In this way, we want to prevent that some of the Russian crude oil reaches the EU market through the back door. Now let's have a look at the banking sector, the second part. We're targeting the Russian banking sector by limiting its ability to raise funding and conduct transactions. We propose to transform the existing prohibition to use the SWIFT system into a full transaction ban. And we propose to apply such a transaction ban to another 22 Russian banks. We also propose to extend the transaction ban to financial operators in third countries that finance trade to Russia in circumvention of sanctions. And we also propose to sanction the Russian Direct Investment Fund, its subsidiaries and its investment projects. In this way, an important channel for financing projects to modernize the Russian economy and strengthen its industrial base will be strictly limited. Now, the third point is that we propose further export bans worth more than 2.5 billion euros. This ban deprives the Russian economy of critical technology and industrial goods. So we're targeting machinery, metals, plastics, and chemicals. They are used as raw materials in industry. And we also restrict the export of dual-use goods and technologies that are used for producing drones, missiles, and other weapon systems. We want to make sure that Russia does not find ways to modernize its weapons with European technologies. Fourth and final, we want our sanctions better applied and respected. That is why we widen the scope of the transaction ban that already exists. And we list 22 Russian and foreign companies providing direct or indirect support to Russia's military and industrial complex. Putin's ability to sustain the war very much depends on the support he receives from third countries. Those who support Russia's war and the efforts of conquering Ukraine carry a heavy responsibility. With this package, we step up pressure on Russia. Our objective is very clear. We are reiterating the call for a full, unconditional ceasefire of at least 30 days. This pause in hostilities could serve as a vital step towards reducing civilian suffering, allow space for meaningful talks for a genuine peace.
Thank you, President von der Leyen. HR Kallas.
Good afternoon. This context where we adopt this package today is very, very stark. It is clear that Russia does not want peace. Nothing suggests that Russia is ready for peace. On the contrary, Russia is escalating its war in Ukraine. Maternity hospitals, emergency medical wards, civilian houses and infrastructure are not military targets. This is an outright illegal war. Russia is cruel, aggressive and a danger to us all. And we act now to support Ukraine, but also put the pressure on Russia. As the President said, the next round of EU sanctions against Russia will target Russia's energy revenues, including the shadow fleet, its military industry and its banking sector. On energy, like it was said, we propose adding another 77 vessels transporting Russian oil to the list, which would bring the total to over 400. When sanctioned, Russia's shadow fleet tankers cannot dock in ports, and Russia has to find new vessels. This costs them more and runs down their profits. As President von der Leyen said, we are also proposing to lower the oil price cap from 60 to 45, which is lower than the market price. And lowering the oil price cap will hit Russia's revenues hard. And we propose sanctions on the Nord Stream pipelines to prevent Russia generating any revenue in the future in this way. It sends a clear signal we are not going back to business as usual. On the banking sector, we are turning the ban on SWIFT messaging services into full transaction ban. We propose 22 new banks to the list of institutions blocked from these transactions. And on military industry, they would not be able to do what they're doing without the support of others, like it was said. So we are going after the companies who are directly involved in producing weapons or enabling production, including in third countries. Today, we suggest adding 22 new companies, including some from China and Belarus, to the list of entities facing stricter restrictions on the dual-use goods. And this brings the total number of targeted companies to over 800. We do all this because sanctions work. Every sanction weakens Russia's ability to fight. So Russia wants us to believe that they can continue this war forever. This is not simply true. Russia has lost tens of billions in oil revenues, its economy is shrinking, and its GDP has dropped. Sanctioning the shadow fleet has been particularly impactful. After our last sanctions package, the 17th sanctions package, the oil exports from Russia via the Black Sea and Baltic Sea routes declined by 30% in a week. Only in the month of May, Russia's sovereign wealth fund declined by 6 billion, from 42 billion to 36 billion US dollars. And it could run out of money by next year. By cutting off revenue streams, we prevent them from refilling their war chest. Every day Russia lies about its desire for peace. Putin is taking the world for a ride. Together with the United States, we can really force Putin to negotiate seriously. Every day Russia continues its war, the price must go up, and that's why we are proposing this 18th package of sanctions. Thank you.
Thank you, HRVP Kallas. We can take a couple of questions. Jorge.
Hello, Jorge Libarero with Euronews. I want to ask you about the United States. Both of you mentioned it. We know that you have been in contact with the United States to coordinate this package of sanctions, but so far there has been no indication that the United States will also impose sanctions. The key question now is on the price cap on Russian oil. It was agreed at G7 level. Can you give us a guarantee that the European Union will lower the price cap on Russian oil even if you don't get the participation of the United States, or is this completely dependent on what President Trump chooses to do? Thank you both.
So we have always been very coordinated on in the G7 on the topic of the oil price cap, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussions that we're going to have in Canada in about a week. There, this topic will play a role, because we all know, and the Americans know as well as all of us in G7, that the oil price has lowered so much that the effectiveness of the cap is to be questioned. And therefore, we all want to lower the oil price from $60 per barrel down to $45 per barrel. Very much looking forward to that. My assumption is that we do that together as G7. We have started that as G7. It was successful as a measure from the G7, and I want to continue this measure as G7.
Nothing to add.
Okay. Mark.
Does it work or not? Yeah, it works. Good afternoon, Mark Peperkorn, Volkskrant, Netherlands. It's two questions. One is a follow-up, because you say, Madam President, you say, I'm looking forward to the discussions in the G7. How confident are you that the cap of $45 per barrel will actually be implemented? And two, maybe for Mrs. Kallas, because you said the revenues of Russia would be hit hard by this $45 barrel cap. Do you know how hard? Do you know what would this cost Russia? Thanks.
So, to the first part of your question, our teams have, of course, been in touch with all the G7s, but also specifically with the United States. And I have also spoken several times to Senator Lindsey Graham, who is the initiator of the American package of sanctions. So we are very much aligned in the aim to urge Russia, by those massive sanctions, to come to the negotiation table and to be serious about negotiations that lead towards a just and lasting peace. That is the common aim. We have different instruments. These are different sanctions packages, but we are very much aligned in the aim. And therefore, I'm very confident that we will achieve this goal. There's one point on the revenues, perhaps, if you allow, Kaya, a figure that struck me in the discussion about energy. I think it was in our college that the energy commissioner presented those figures. At the beginning of the war, Russia had 12 billion euros of energy or of revenues from fossil fuels from Europe per month, 12 billion. And now we're down to 1.8 billion, still too much. So we are phasing out Russian fossil fuels. The proposal is on the table from the Commission. But this shows how much, only if you look only at the European or the revenues from Europe to Russia, how much these different measures have already had an impact on reducing the revenues of Russia.
Yes, and to add to that, it is accumulating as well. I think we were also surprised that the last sanctions package on the shadow fleet had such a big effect that it was really reducing the revenues from oil exports from or via the Black Sea and Baltic Sea by 30%. Because, you know, we have done a lot of sanctions, but that now they are also starting to accumulate, and that's why I can't give you an exact number, but we feel that these sanctions have a huge effect together with the other sanctions that we have already done.
Thank you, President. Thank you, HRVP, and thank you for your participation. I wish you a good afternoon.